The first thing I'm going to do is start from my Canvas dashboard, and I'm going to scroll down to my unpublished courses. This is where I should be able to locate any of the blank courses that are active in Skyward, but I haven't necessarily built anything out in Canvas yet. You'll usually see them because they'll just kind of be a blank square without a course image yet. So I'm going to look for my first semester Avid course, and I'm going to build out this one, but not from scratch. So when I click in, it looks totally blank and empty. But I'd like to import my first semester Avid course from last year. So I'm going to, right away from my blank homepage, I'm going to go to Import Existing Content on the far right side. From here, I'm going to select to copy a Canvas course. I'll be copying my own, so it already exists. And I find it easiest to type in my own last name to kind of find any of the courses that are associated with my account. Semester 1. And so it's going to populate, and then it's going to give me some other options. In terms of content, I actually would like to select specific content, so I will have the option to not import kind of some old stuff or maybe things that I want to kind of have a clean slate for. And then the most important thing that I think when it comes to importing course content is adjusting the events and due dates. So if you check this box under the options, I always recommend that you don't worry about shifting dates because the calendar years don't always match up perfectly, or the holidays or days off. Instead, I'm going to remove the dates altogether. So any assignments, any pages that I have listed on the student to-do list, anything with a date associated with it is going to come into this new course with a complete blank slate. So that way, if something doesn't have a date, it's a good indication to me that I need to click into the assignment, proofread it, make sure there's nothing I want to update, and then add the new date for my students in the current term to focus on. So again, I'm going to search by my last name to find a course. Make sure you're looking for the odd numbered courses for your fall semester. I'm going to select specific content, and then I'm going to be sure that I adjust the events and due dates and remove any of those dates. So from there, I'm going to click the import button, and nothing's really going to happen. You won't see a green bar or anything because it's waiting for a selection. This is where I can go in and handpick any of the content that I want. So for sure, I'm going to want my modules that I've already created, so you can kind of go through and see which modules you're selecting from. But I want all of those. My assignments, I'm going to expand just to do a quick glance. But it looks like I'm going to be keeping all of the things that I already used last semester. So I'll take all of my assignments. I'm also going to include my discussion topics and my pages. I'm not going to include any external tools because I want to set those up fresh, but I for sure want to take any files and rubrics that I've created in the past. The other thing I typically skip over is any old announcements. For example, there looks like there was an announcement I posted at the end of the old semester with a date, probably letting my students know when was the last chance to turn in their work. That date will probably change in the future for this semester, so I'm going to skip that. I found that a lot of my announcements aren't necessarily relevant, so I don't like to import them every time. The other thing that's helpful is course settings. So if you were really careful and set up your navigation in different course settings last year, you can import those same settings to save yourself a bit of time this time around. So I've kind of gone through and handpicked. You may be more selective in certain things that you do or don't want to include, but once I've selected that content, now I will see that running bar going to show my progress. Okay, so now my progress bar has disappeared and is showing me an indicator that it has completed the import job. It may be a little bit alarming to see a link next to it indicating a lot of issues. Typically, these are telling you that you have assignments now in your course that don't have a due date, and so that's going to be problematic if you were to sync it to Skyward. So you can click on it to double check, and you can kind of see this long list. All of my assignments don't have their due dates, but that will be resolved as we kind of go through the semester. So at this point, if all of my old content has imported, by the time I go back to my home, it shouldn't be blank anymore. And so sure enough, now I have all of my old course content. This obviously was the last week of last semester, so I know that a lot of my content is here. I can also click into the modules just to double check to make sure that everything kind of came over. And I'm going to collapse all so I can do a quick scroll through, and there are all of my modules from last year. So I have the content here that's going to be great, and I can kind of fiddle around with that and fine tune it and get ready for a new group of students. But before I start focusing on the content, knowing it's all here, I can instead focus on making sure that the course itself is set up and that I have all of my settings ready to go. So at the very bottom of your course menu, we're going to click on the settings link and double check that we have all of our settings all set. And because I selected to import the course settings from my old course, a lot of this has already been done for me, but it's really good to double check. So if you don't have a course image, it's always helpful to create one or to find one. If you click on these three dots from this kebab button, you can choose an image to upload. This will make your course stand out from all of the other courses or all of the other templates when it's on a student's dashboard. The next thing, once I have my course image, is to click to the navigation tab. And under navigation, this is where we're going to impact what items are visible to students on the far left side of their course menu. And so at the top up here, these are the items that we recommend that you include. For sure, you would have your home button. We are going to include a Zoom Classroom link just in case we need it, but you don't have to set anything up at this point in time. Your modules link, because that's where our students should be trained to go to find their information. The assignments link is very helpful for students, family members, and other staff to help students kind of organize what's coming up, what's past due. Announcements are going to be visible, but you'll notice that it has this eyeball symbol and it's crossed out. Remember, that won't be visible until I actually have an announcement for students to go in and see. But I do want to make it or activate it by dragging it up to the top. Grades will allow students to check their grade book. And then these bottom three are ones that you're going to want to pull up to this top portion. They won't actually be visible to students, but they will turn them on or activate them for you as the instructor. New Analytics is a great way to kind of keep track of student work for intervention purposes or to collect data. Grade Sync is where you'll be able to turn on nightly sync or to check the progress of your grade syncs and to help you with troubleshooting any sync errors. And then if you'd like, you can also turn on Studio. Studio is going to make it possible for you to create your own video quizzes, kind of like Edpuzzle. And if you remember, at the end of this school year, Edpuzzle will be going away. So I'm encouraging people to go ahead and start building out their videos or reworking things in Studio piece by piece throughout this year so that you won't be kind of caught having to do all of it next summer. So these would be some main ones. And Studio doesn't have to be activated. You can actually have it down here deactivated as well. So once we have our navigation set, the last tab that's really important in here are your feature options. So for most people, they should already be turned on for the the assignment enhancements for student. You want that turned on. That's going to make it a lot easier for students to track their progress through an assignment submission and receiving their feedback. The discussion or announcements redesign, you'll want to turn that on. It should be on across the whole district, but it's just a really nice kind of overhaul visually of the discussion features within Canvas. And then finally, down at the bottom, of course, we have our new quizzes. Classic quizzes is no longer being supported and is not functioning as well. So we want to make sure that you are converting your quizzes into new quizzes and building out from there. So if those three features are turned on, you should be in really good shape. The next thing I want to focus on is my gradebook. And so I'm going to go to my grades tab. And since I've imported all of my old content, I'm going to see all of these assignments listed already. So the very first thing I'm going to encourage you to do is to scroll all the way to the end and you'll find your total column on the far right once you've scrolled all the way. It's really not that accessible or user-friendly as a teacher to have the total score all the way at the end and have to scroll every time. So if you click on the menu for that column under the Kebab button, and you're going to click the second option down to move to front, this is going to jump that total column all the way over right next to the student names. And so it will stay there. You won't have to move that anymore for the rest of the semester. Once I've moved the total to the front, I'm going to go up to my view options, and I'm going to arrange my assignments from newest to oldest so that the most recent things that I assign are going to be closest to the total and the student name. This is going to make my Canvas gradebook mimic and look identical to the Skyward gradebook, so it's a lot easier to double check whenever I sync. Finally, I'm going to also add filters. In this case, it only is allowing me to do modules. In my Avid course, everything is a summative assignment. There isn't a formative category. So you may have assignment groups listed here under your filters. I would definitely turn that on because then you can grade only the summative assignments, which is really helpful at grade bucket times where you're helping students get caught up and helping them prioritize and provide feedback for those heavy hitter assignments. And then you also, if you have multiple sections of the same course, you can select the sections filter as well. So if you have those three modules, assignment types or assignment groups, and sections, I would turn all three on. So by clicking on that modules, I have this drop-down box so that I can just focus on 1 week at a time. So for the first week, these would be those assignments. And you can obviously view all of them, but having these filter drop-down boxes at the top makes it really user-friendly for you as the instructor. The very last thing that I would strongly encourage you to do is also under the View menu, and that is to uncheck Unpublished Assignments. This will remove any assignment that you haven't published out of your gradebook. This will clear up your gradebook so that you won't have a bunch of these empty columns until you're ready to use them. So since I have unchecked that, I still have a lot here. That tells me that the way my content imported has a lot of those things published. So I can quickly jump to my assignments page, and you'll see that all of my assignments are most of them are published. So as I unpublish these because I don't want students to be able to view them yet, that will clear them out of my gradebook. Since we were talking about the gradebook, it's also worth checking on your grade sync status. Some people like to use the nightly sync, some people don't. If you do like to have your gradebook automatically sync, you'll click on the grade sync menu that we activated when we set our navigation settings. Click on the Utilities tab at the top and then toggle on this nightly sync button. It will show you green with a check mark if you'd like it on. If you would prefer not to have it on, you can always uncheck the box as well. To ensure that everything syncs properly and to avoid having to remaster and troubleshoot any grade sync issues, I'm going to go back to my Assignments tab and make sure that I've set up my assignment groups and the weighting system accurately. I like to minimize these different groups so that you don't have a long list to keep scrolling through, and then you should be able to see your assignment groups. Keep in mind that Skyward will only recognize summative assessment, formative assessment, and final exam. And so for Avid, it's kind of a unique course in that it only has the summative assessment category, and it's going to be 100% of the total. If you needed to change the grade weighting of your different assignment groups, that's going to be at the tippy top for the entire assignment settings group. Click on the Kebab button and then click on Assignment Groups Weight with the check mark. You'll want to make sure that this box is checked to indicate that you want the final grades weighted based on the assignment groups, and you'll have all of the different assignment groups listed here that you've created, and you can set those to your 70-30 split or your 70-20-10 and whatever it is, and it'll double check to make sure that it matches 100%. This is a great time to log into Skyward and to double check your grade weights to make sure that what you're setting up in Canvas is going to match your Skyward gradebooks. So click Save, and this would also then be the time that while you're in Skyward checking for those grade weights, You'll want to click into every single one of your sections in Skyward. By clicking into each section and just clicking around a little bit, it just kind of activates Skyward and lets Skyward know that this is an active section, so that when Canvas starts trying to communicate with it and syncing for the first time, both are kind of awake and alert and ready to talk to each other. The last thing that may be helpful to you as you set up your new courses, depending on the types of students that you have in your classes, you may need to set up some accommodations. If you do need to set any extended time or time and a half, you can do that once for the whole semester so that it applies to any time a student is taking a Canvas new quiz throughout the semester. So if you go to the quizzes link, this will give you a list of any of your quizzes. You're going to click into the quiz. Make sure it's kind of a dark rocket, it's filled in and shaded, and go in as if you're going to build or create questions within the quiz. Once you're in the actual new quizzes tool, this kind of creation engine here, at the top there's a moderate tab with all of your students listed. And so as you receive their IEP information or their 504 information and they need to have kind of built-in time and a half, you can set up those accommodations here by clicking on the pencil next to the student's name and adjusting to give them additional time, to remove a time limit if you do set time limits, or to do a multiplier for time and a half or double time. Once you click save, that will save the accommodation with that student account for your course, so you will never have to do it again. So you can click the return button to get out of the quiz. And again, that's really only applicable if you have students that have specific accommodations you can set, or if you ever have timed requirements for your quizzes. If they're untimed or there's unlimited attempts, that may not be something that you need to set. The last thing that may be helpful to you is figuring out which courses are available on your dashboard. So some of your new courses may be, some may not be, but if you click on courses from your global navigation menu on the far left side, it's the little book, and go all the way down to all courses. This will show you all of your active courses as well as any past enrollments or ones from the past. And what you're looking for is the little star next to it. So here is the course that I was just building out, my fall semester. I don't necessarily need to see my spring semester yet, so I can unclick that star and it will no longer be visible on my dashboard. So just clicking these stars will favorite them, and then that will affect what you see and what's visible on your dashboard. So as I go back to my dashboard, I can see my course. It's no longer kind of a blank square, and I am ready to publish this course when I have all my content arranged and visible so that students can see it. So I can publish it either from my dashboard with this button in the top left corner, or I can click into the course itself, and on the top right side there it's showing me the course status where it's currently unpublished, but I could also publish it from within the course. So we hope it was helpful to set up your Canvas courses. If you have any questions, be sure to send me an email. I'm always happy to help. I hope you have a wonderful new semester.